Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome into NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Harris Rubenstein, and you may not be wondering this, but I am actually wearing socks with my dog's faces on it. If you think that's weird, then I guess I just love my dog more than you. That's the kind of show we're going to have today on NBA Weekly. We got a fun, packed show for you guys. Lots of rumors, lots of free agents to go to, and then finally we're going to get into some NBA 2K19 talk as we break down the top 20 players for the upcoming NBA video game. I love 2K. I'm not very good at it, as Tom Downey has exclaimed multiple times on this program, but I still love the game. So let's get right into our rumors. We talked a little bit about this yesterday on the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports, but Melo is indeed going to sign with the Houston Rockets for that $2.4 million veteran minimum. He's going to get waived by the Atlanta Hawks this week. We need to have a discussion, ladies and gentlemen. We need to have a real serious discussion with ourselves, with our souls. Is Carmelo Anthony a good basketball player anymore? I think we just need to officially start asking this question, because it used to be that Melo wouldn't play defense and it was fine because his offense would make up for it. Now his offense is so bad that nothing makes up for just anything that he does anymore on the court. He won't come off the bench. He won't really do anything that involves being a part of an actual system. And I'm still confused why Rockets fans, I'm a big NBA Reddit guy, and I'm usually all over most team Reddits. I do not understand why Rockets fans are so excited for Carmelo Anthony at this point. And this has come from a guy who thinks that Carmelo Anthony is a surefire Hall of Famer and is probably one of, 25 to 30 best scorers in the history of basketball. So, but at this point in his career, how much does he really help the Rockets? Look at their lineup. Look at their lineup for next year. This is without Clint Capella, mind you, and I'm sure that they'll end up getting Clint Capella worked out. But is CP3, James Harden, and Carmelo Anthony really a big three that is going to go a long distance? I understand that we've doubted the Rockets multiple times over the past couple of years, saying, is Mike D'Antoni's system going to work with James Harden? Can James Harden play point guard instead of pure shooting guard? Can Chris Paul and James Harden play on the court at the same time? I get it. The Rockets have been correct about all these things so far, and Daryl Morey completely deserves the benefit of the doubt at this point. But the question needs to be asked. Does Melo make the Rockets a better basketball team? Are the Rockets better today than they were a month ago with Carmelo Anthony? I think the answer is a very obvious no. And I don't know how this is even a concept anymore, that Carmelo Anthony makes the Rockets a better overall team. Sure, it'll be fun to see him with CP3 and shooting threes, but again, people, this is why advanced statistics have started to matter in the NBA, because it's no longer just, this guy puts up 16 points per game, he's a great player. We have net ratings and offensive ratings and defensive ratings that can put together numbers that make sense of how a player performs over an entire season that isn't just putting the ball in the hoop. And with Carmelo Anthony, every single statistic right now states that regardless of what OKC's system was last year, he's just not that good anymore. He's just not. It's just very clear he's not the same player he was anymore. We have a comment from Eric Alston saying, please let this be false. This is not false. Carmelo Anthony is joining the Houston Rockets. And trust me, Eric, I'm as stunned as you are. I still think he should go to the Miami Heat and just launch up 30 shots a night and have some fun. I don't understand why a legitimate playoff team with title aspirations is bringing a guy onto their team who last year was one of the biggest reasons why the Thunder did not make it to the finals. I'm serious. He was probably one of the top 2 or 3 reasons, along with Andre Roberson's injury, that the Thunder did not end up being title contenders. Straight up, he was one of their biggest issues. Got another comment here from Julia Lee saying, in my opinion, Houston needs another scorer so Melo can help their defense. No. It's actually funny you bring this up, because Jabari Parker mentioned something a couple days ago saying, ain't nobody playing defense, basically saying that he's just not going to play defense this year. Look, all you players out there that don't want to play defense and only want to score, that doesn't work anymore. This is 2018. If you want to actively not play defense anymore, welcome to YouTube, son. You're going to get put on so many compilations, your head's going to spin. So if Melo doesn't want to play defense and Jabari Parker doesn't want to play defense, fine, I'll see you on YouTube as your reputation gets tarnished like James Harden has done over the past, 3 or 4 years, or really his entire NBA career. So Houston needs people to play defense. That's one of the reasons why they were actually so good last year. All right, let's get into our next rumor here. I can't talk about Melo anymore. Markelle Fultz apparently looks incredible. So according to multiple sources inside of the Philadelphia 76ers, Markelle Fultz has completely changed his entire jump shot and is a vastly improved player now. He's rebuilt himself as a basketball player, and that's usually what happens to these guys. I mean, you have a lot of training kind of savant-y guys now in the NBA, like a Drew Hanlen or a Chris Brinkley, who also works out with a lot of NBA stars. And it seems that Drew Hanlen is really the go-to guy if you need to fix your career. We know that Markelle Fultz is obviously working out with him. We know that Julian Okafor is also trying to work out with him as well to reignite his NBA career. So Markelle Fultz working with Drew Hanlen is fantastic for him. I mean, look, nothing can really be worse than what we saw out of Markelle Fultz's jump shot last year. So good that he's actually trying to, make a difference and try to actually, rebuild his shot instead of just being stubborn and saying, oh, I'm fine, nothing's wrong. Good for Markelle Fultz actually having the maturity level to change his jump shot and make the changes where it is needed. All right, let's go to our next rumor here. Let's get into some Kawhi stuff because I'm about to bring you guys through another roller coaster of Kawhi Leonard, because if you thought that him just being traded to the Raptors ended this situation, you are very sadly mistaken. So apparently Kawhi will play and be at training camp for the Toronto Raptors. Woj also said that Kawhi is ready to go. He's healthy. He's taken a physical, and the Raptors are not going to publicly release his medical information, which I guess they don't want to do because he doesn't trust the Spurs, and that was something that really pissed them off. I don't know. Kawhi Leonard's head is all over the place at this point, but he did pass his physical, and he will be at training camp for the Toronto Raptors. There's also a rumor swirling that Kawhi is actually going to be at the USA basketball camp, which is coached by Greg Popovich. That's going to be really, really awkward. Though, can it be awkward if Kawhi Leonard doesn't actually speak words to anyone? Does being awkward imply that you have to communicate to another human being? I'm not sure, because you can have awkward silences, but it's going to be super weird between Kawhi Leonard and Greg Popovich. And as we know with the Raptors lineup, look, the team was going to be good this year. I think we overstated a little bit on the past couple of shows, the impact that this is going to have on Toronto and, the negative impact of getting rid of DeMar DeRozan. But look, if Kawhi Leonard is 100% healthy and comes back the same player he was when he was one of the 5 best players in the NBA and maybe the 2nd best player in all of basketball at his peak, then the Raptors are going to be one of the best teams in basketball next year. I mean, Lowry, Anunbi, Leonard, Serge Ibaka, and Jonas Valanciunas will end up being one of the best defensive starting 5s in all of basketball, and Kawhi will turn them into a little bit more of a modern-based team like we saw with the switch last year to more three-point shooting offense. Kawhi Leonard is a much better fit in terms of an offensive system player than DeMar DeRozan was in Nick Nurse's concept of wanting to shoot more threes. So I still think the Raptors could end up being a title contender. I don't think they're going to win the finals. I don't think they're going to get to the finals, but I think they are a title contender. We had Enes Kanter yesterday say, on a rival sports network that there are only 5 teams in the NBA that matter next year. It's Golden State, Houston, Boston, the Lakers, and the 76ers. I think the Raptors have to be on that list now they have Kawhi Leonard. I think they're a realistic title contender, but they're not actually going to end up making it to the finals. All right, let's get to our next Kawhi rumor because it just never ends with Kawhi Leonard. So now apparently Kawhi Leonard is going to stay in Toronto. Yep. This is what's going to happen. First, he only wanted to go to the Lakers. Then he was considering the 76ers. Then he was considering the Clippers. Then it was back to the Lakers, back to the Clippers, back to the Sixers, and now he got traded to the Raptors, who he didn't want to play for a week ago, and now apparently he's staying in Toronto. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, you need to be really careful about what you read on the internet, because at this point, I am convinced that 90% of the things that we have read about Kawhi Leonard are just complete lies. Just complete, straight, 100% lies, and no one has any idea what's going on with him right now. This is ridiculous. Now he's going to stay in Toronto. This was coming from the Toronto Sun, by the way, who was quoting a source of someone close to Kawhi Leonard. What if it was someone standing next to him? That person is technically close to Kawhi Leonard. I can make a comment. If I stand next to Kawhi and say, Kawhi is going to go to the Clippers, I am technically a source close to Kawhi Leonard. Look, people, this whole situation at this point is just completely out of hand. And it's going to get even more out of hand because I would like to debut a new segment here, a small segment inside of NBA Rumors. It's me being hashtag mad online. And for you, Kawhi Leonard and Kawhi Leonard's uncle, I'm so done with you. Here's our next story involving Kawhi Leonard. All right, Kawhi Leonard's uncle stonewalled David Robinson. stonewalled David Robinson, which means Kawhi's uncle simply did not allow David Robinson to speak to Kawhi at all. Totally blocked any communication from one of the greatest players in the history of basketball, not to mention one of the greatest people in the history of basketball. If there's anyone I will want to be giving my nephew advice about the NBA, it's David Robinson, the dude that, went to the Naval Academy and has been one of the best players off the court in the history of basketball, one of the most charitable players ever. That's the guy I want talking to Kawhi Leonard. But apparently, Kawhi's uncle, David Robinson just isn't good enough for Kawhi Leonard, according to, what is it? Uncle Dennis, I believe, is Kawhi Leonard's uncle. Look, I know I've criticized every single side of this, Kawhi Leonard situation, whether it's Kawhi, his uncle, the Spurs, whatever. It is very clear, and I've said this more times than I have teeth in my mouth. Kawhi Leonard's uncle has been the issue here the entire time, not even close. He has caused so many problems with the trade request and not allowing him to communicate and blocking him off from the Spurs. This is all Kawhi Leonard's uncle's fault. All his fault. I swear, he must be a Lakers fan. That is the only possible way that there would be any reason for it to have gone to this point that he would go to this distance. Why block David Robinson from talking to Kawhi Leonard? Why? Like, what do you gain by pissing off David Robinson and making every other NBA fan scratch their head all over again? Like, look, I don't work in PR. I work in the media. I have a girlfriend who works in PR. I explained this situation to her, and she said that it is blasphemous that any single person would ever treat a family member this way and tarnish their reputation like this. This is ridiculous. It's just outrageous. I am still mad online. I will remain mad online about Kawhi Leonard until this whole situation is done. I wish they traded him to the Lakers so we didn't have to talk about this anymore. But let me know in the comment section who's at fault. Give me an S for the Spurs or give me a K for Kawhi. I'm putting up a K. I just no longer can blame the Spurs for this. What did they do? They got blindsided by a jealous family member. I don't understand this. Let's move on. Another thing that I'm mad online about. If you follow me on Twitter at SportsDean, you'll notice that I tweeted something out about this yesterday. Tobias Harris is currently a member of the Los Angeles Clippers on a decent deal. He's 27 years old. So the Clippers decide to offer him an $80 million contract extension. It's pretty good if you're Tobias Harris. The Rockets won't even give Clint Capella, who's a much better player than Tobias Harris, a max contract. Yet Tobias Harris is not going to accept an $80 million contract extension. Now, I'm sure that next offseason, Tobias Harris is going to get, maybe $90 million or $100 million. Tobias Harris wants a max contract. He is looking for $188 million from the Clippers or $145.5 million for another team. Tobias Harris, of all players, is the one looking. You know what? I have your max contract for you here. Let me see. Oh, there we go. There you go, Tobias. I found it. I found your max contract. It was sitting under my desk. I'm sure you'll get this summer. It's gone. Because you're not getting a max contract, Tobias Harris. Of any player in the NBA that is going to be eligible for a max contract next offseason, why would the Clippers give it to a guy who isn't all that good, doesn't shoot threes at a high clip, is 28 years old, and has never actually been an elite NBA player? You're going to get $144 million? Take the $80 million and run, my friend. You're going to end up like Nerlens Noel, who's going to get veteran minimum deals for the rest of his NBA career instead of $7 million with the Mavs because he bet on himself. Look, I'm always down for players getting the bag. This is Tobias Harris we're talking about here, people. Tobias Harris. Like, at some point, we need to officially put down a barrier on what is realistic and what is ridiculous. Tobias Harris falls in the ridiculous category of getting a max contract. That's it for Matt Online. Let's move to our next NBA rumor. I need to calm down. My blood pressure is getting too high. Next NBA rumor we got here. The Wizards, according to John Wall, are going to do a little less bragging this year. Wall says, quote, "We're going to have a different mindset this year," and says that he wants to earn respect from the rest of the league. Now, I don't know how signing Dwight Howard is going to change your reputation, your mindset, and your ability to gain respect around the NBA, but all the power to you, John Wall. I mean, look, they've been talking trash for 6 years now since they started making the playoffs. I mean, the Wizards have had John Wall for, yikes, let's see, let's see, they drafted him when he was 18 years old, when he just came out of 1 year, one and done guy. So he's been in the NBA now for almost about 12 years. And the Wizards, with the best player in the history of their franchise, have done nothing. So we'll see how much respect they can gain by getting Dwight Howard on the team. I can't talk about the Wizards anymore. Let's go to IT. This is a much better story to talk about. So Isaiah Thomas just got picked up by the Denver Nuggets, and he just did a whole expose with ESPN and Woj, a whole interview talking about, the past couple years with him and what they're going to be able to do in terms of, where he could have gone, where he could have signed, and the places he wanted to go. Apparently, Isaiah Thomas reached out to the Boston Celtics. That's really interesting, seeing as the Boston Celtics were the one that traded him away almost a full calendar year ago not today. It's going to be, I think, next week or 2 weeks from now. The first week of August is when Isaiah Thomas got traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Kyrie Irving. But it's just interesting that almost a calendar year after he got traded, he calls up the Celtics and said, if the opportunity is there, I'd love to come back. It's a very interesting quote coming from Isaiah Thomas, though. I think the Nuggets are going to end up being the better place for him. I still think that the Celtics did IT kind of wrong. I think they treated him poorly, but look, that's the nature of the NBA. You're wondering why players aren't loyal to their teams. It's because teams aren't loyal to their players. And Isaiah Thomas is a perfect example of that. All right, let's talk a little Drew League, because the Drew League is going on. It is the summer, and we know that a lot of NBA players love, throwing their skills around and dunking all over Denzel Valentine like Frankie Smokes was doing. But DeMar DeRozan and Rudy Gay, two of the better friends in the league that we have today, they dropped 60 combined points in a Drew League game. Now, that doesn't really mean a lot, seeing as, Nate Robinson is still playing in the Drew League, and you have other very low-end NBA players who are dropping 40 points in the Drew League. But it is cool to see DeMar DeRozan and Rudy Gay playing basketball together. They played together in Toronto from 2012 to 2014. And we know that they're two guys who play very well off each other. They averaged almost 20 points per game for about 2 seasons that they played together, other than the third where, Rudy Gay ended up leaving, going to the Spurs. But look, I think DeMar and Rudy Gay being back on the team together is going to be really good for both of them, especially for DeMar, who, very traumatic trade for him. The first breakup is always the hardest, as Richard Jefferson would say, in terms of moving on from a team. And I think for DeMar, he needed to go to a franchise that is safe, is secure, has people he knows on it, and has a stable organization. And regardless of what Kawhi Leonard's uncle wants to make out, I would think the Spurs are probably the best organization that DeMar DeRozan could have been traded to. The fit is there, he has a buddy there, he has a coach there, and the GM likes him as well. I think this is a good landing spot for DeMar DeRozan, and it's good to see that him and Rudy Gay still have that chemistry of a couple years ago. All right, let's go to our next rumor here. This one's fun. This one was obviously more news than rumor, but Serge Ibaka went to Instagram the other day, and someone had asked him why he hadn't posted a goodbye message to DeMar DeRozan, which I never understand the point of doing publicly anyway, because all these guys know each other anyway. And Ibaka kind of reiterated that statement, saying, between friends, you don't have to make everything public. I have his phone number. Thanks for your interest. Now, I compare this to when my girlfriend asked me to make a post for her on Instagram saying how much I love her and this and that. And I just respond saying, I see you every single day. I don't need to tell everyone on social media how much I love you. It's not necessary. Why does Serge Ibaka have to put out a message saying how much he loves and appreciates DeMar DeRozan? A simple phone call will do. Like, why can't he just call DeMar and say, hey, thanks for being a great teammate. You're awesome. I had a great time playing with you. Good luck in San Antonio. Like, why isn't that good enough for people? Why does there need to be some crazy, outrageous social media, outreach? This doesn't mean that Ibaka and DeRozan didn't get along. It just, like, Ibaka's in his early 30s. He's not exactly part of the social media generation. I think he's fine just calling DeMar DeRozan. Let's go to our next one here. Michael Beasley had some very interesting comments yesterday. One of them was him being fed up with how the media treats the NBA's middle class. So we'll bring up the quote for you now. This is a fantastic quote, and I'll read it off to you guys here. If everyone does their job right and stops judging some players, me mainly, you'll figure out that guys like me and Nick Young and J.R. Smith and Lance Stevenson and guys like that actually know how to play basketball. Damn, Michael Beasley. So Michael Beasley coming off the top rope here and coming at the NBA mediaites, myself included most likely, saying that we just need to stop hating on these dudes who might not be superstars. But look, Michael Beasley, no one is saying that you can't play basketball. No one is coming at you saying that you don't know what you're doing and that you guys don't know how to interact with other basketball players, which Michael Beasley also went on to say. We're just saying that you're not very good and that most teams should probably think twice before signing you guys, seeing as the amount of turmoil that you guys have caused in your locker rooms has not always been worth the production. Whether that is a Lance Stevenson, whose GM on his way out said sometimes he was our best player and sometimes he was the best player for the other team. So, look, Michael Beasley, I understand what you're trying to say, but sometimes the criticism is warranted. I'll put it that way. But let me know in the comment section if you guys think the NBA media, myself included, is a little bit too critical. I don't think so. I think the NBA media rides a good line between being overly critical and too little critical. I think the NBA media is way too afraid nowadays to go after individual players, especially stars, and give opinions on them. I won't be. We saw people crapping on me in YouTube comments for saying that Kawhi Leonard should be allowed to do what he wants. Now when you have a $20 million contract, folks, you got a job to do. And you have a people to report to. And if a team who is paying you $20 million asks you for information, you give that team information. So, again, can't talk about Kawhi. Makes my blood pressure get too high. All right, let's go to our last rumor here, talking about Dirk. Dirk is returning to the Dallas Mavericks. Some good news around the NBA. 1 year, $5 million deal for Dirk Nowitzki going back to the Dallas Mavericks. 21 seasons in the NBA. 21. He has officially broken the record for most consecutive seasons on one team. Congratulations to Dirk. Fun fact, everyone. If Dirk plays one more year in the NBA, his entire playing career will have spanned 4 decades. He will have played in the 1990s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. So thank you, Dirk, for being one of the best NBA legends that we ever have, and I hope you do end up coming back next year. 4 decades of basketball. That is absolutely wild. The surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, Dirk Nowitzki.